feel as though I were born again. Imagine being
Yeah. Mary Martin and Jenny changed my life.
Really?
I got to, well, it was the first Broadway show I ever saw, and I was 9, and my mom took me and my sister to a Saturday matinee, Thanksgiving weekend, 1963. Kennedy had been assassinated the week before, and my parents had just started their divorce proceedings. My mom had moved out, and the kid that walked into that theater is not the same kid that walked out. You can't explain. If you watch a film or a video of her, it's hard.
She's good.
She's good. It's hard to explain. She's a theater person. And there's something that happens with her in front of you in the room that doesn't happen, that isn't translated on video or film. She's a theater person. That's who she is. It's that energy.
And you met her.
And I met her, and I did the liner notes for the reissue of Peter Pan on CD. But I spoke to her, I talked to her, and she was Mary Martin. And that's all I can, I can't go beyond that, except that she brings me great joy and happiness.
I taught a trick to my shadow to
I was lucky enough to go see Mary Martin and Ethel Merman in their one-night concert. And Ethel Merman on stage was a force of nature. She burst out of there with the "Gee, but it's great to be here" from Happy Hunting. To be. You had no choice, because the oxygen got sucked out of the theater into her, but to stand up and go nuts for her. And it was amazing. And she and Mary were astounding. And in our lives that are full of once-in-a-lifetime events, that's a once-in-a-lifetime event. That's like up there. Yeah.
Wow.
She was in the original Toronto production of Godspell.
Oh, wow.
And we became friendly then. It was an amazing cast. We had
Andrea Martin,
Wow.
Donnie Scardino, Eugene Levy, Gilda,
Victor Garber.
Victor Garber.
And Belushi, I think, wasn't part of the company, but he was everybody's friend, so he was around all the time.
And Martin Short.
And Marty Short.
Wow.
All fresh out of their little local improv theater. And then they all came down and became Saturday Night Live, of course. But Gilda was the loveliest, sweetest, slightly wacko, but under control kid. And years after she did Godspell, Ron Delson, no, it was
Lorne Michaels.
Lauren Michaels, gave her 2 weeks at the Winter Garden, Gilda Live. And I wound up getting hired to general manage that. And so I got to kind of reunite with her and hang out a bit. And I just adored her. There was an innocence about her that was completely genuine.
Yeah.
And she was living a whacked out life, but she was pure at heart. She was just the loveliest person.
When they did it here, it was with a completely different cast, and it was a very happy production. And there was a young actress playing the maid, the goofy maid, named Patsy Farron. And this girl, she's a woman now, she stole the show. She stole that scene. Every time she came on stage, she got a laugh. And you could see in Angela's face pride. It wasn't, it's my laugh, honey. It was, oh my God, look at you. Aren't you something? And there was a pride in what they were doing in that production, and Angela led it.
Isn't it rich?
She's in class with Angela.
Yeah. And we've been lucky enough to be with people who knew her to go backstage after a show. So we went to her dressing room, the champagne opened. We were there for 35 minutes or so, jabbering, talking about stuff. The first James Bond movie that she was in had just happened. She said, finally, at my local grocery store, they know who I am. Other than that, I'd always been Mrs. Williams. They knew I dabbled, but they didn't know. And she was everything you want Judi Dench to be.
The Inheritance.
The most important play of my lifetime by a mile.
Yes.
It's our lives.
It's our lives.
In our earlier years. It's overwhelmingly powerful and beautiful. We're going again in 3 weeks' time.
3 weeks' time, yeah.
Cool.
It'll be our third time. The second time, midway through the first act, they had a power failure and they canceled the performance. And so we went back the next night for part 2, and as soon as it started, part 2 started, we just looked at each other and started crying. It's great. It's simply great. And people will go, oh, you know, it could be cut a little bit, or no, don't cut it. Don't touch it. It's one of the great, great, great achievements.
What is it that we're living
changed my life.
for?
Well, it was, you know, bring him along. When you see you're 15 years old and you're at a musical and there's a gay character and it's not a problem, even though you're not sure of who you are, you're sure of who you are. You go, oh, I'm not alone. And Bacall was fantastic. It was a great show. It's not a great show, but it was a great show.
Jerry Herman.
The first time I met him was at his house when he was doing a backers audition for La Cage, and I got there early and they said, Jerry's upstairs on the 3rd floor. Could you tell him that the caterer needs to go to the 5th floor? And I went, oh, okay. And I went upstairs to the 3rd floor and I looked around and I knocked on a door, and he opened the door a little bit and he was naked. He was just getting out of the shower. And I said, the caterers need to go to the 5th floor. And he went, well, then send them to the 5th floor. And he closed the door. And I went, oh, God, that was Jerry Herman. And then later on, he was up on the 5th floor and the caterers were there and I was there. And he walked forward and I said, oh, I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. And he laughed and he went, you know, that's from one of my shows. And I went, no, I didn't. And he went, if you're going to quote a show, you should know what it's from. And it's from Mame. And I went, sorry.
For you to miss that.
I missed that.